Thank you. All right, I'm good. Alrighty, hey guys, Jacqueline Fernandez here at the Alert Center. We do have some breaking news for you this afternoon. We're staying on top of it. A wild night for first responders, as you can imagine, after a lengthy standoff in Washington County. A 42-year-old manhunt suspect is now in custody, so that is the good news here. Jason Davenport was captured just before 8:30 this morning in Kennard, Nebraska, but not before pursuit and an intense standoff. We actually have that video available for you, so let me head to that video here real quick. Cut back over to that video so you can see. We just captured this morning, so here's that video for you. There's the personnel on scene. This is the woman that they managed to capture and take into custody. As we're following along with the video, though, this incident began last night around 8:15 when officers went to the area of 30th and Jefferson to find Davenport. He was wanted after fleeing from officers last week. That's when Davenport reportedly fired a gun at troopers. Officers then returned fire. They say Davenport took a woman hostage. That was the woman that police just handcuffed, you saw on your screen there, and then took off in a gray Ford Fusion. Now, during this chase, officers lost sight of the car in Upland Park. Earlier this morning, that woman was pulled out, and this was in Kennard, Nebraska, as you just saw. Let me see if I can, there's this woman we're talking about here. I'm going to pause that video so you can see the officers working to arrest this woman. They're handcuffing her. She was rushed to the scene in an ambulance. Just before 8:30 this morning, the Nebraska State Patrol took Davenport into custody, and this woman is also in custody. Meantime, the Nebraska State Patrol held a news conference this morning in Lincoln, so we're going to take a listen in on that. Give me 1 second. We do have this, of course, all on our website, wwt.com. Let me see if I can find a way to click over here. Oh, there we go. So let's take a listen in. This is NSP Colonel John Bolduc giving an update on the events that led to the overnight manhunt and arrest following the standoff early this morning. Let's listen in.
Omaha is in custody and that all individuals are safe. I'll get into the details that we can share at this time, but first I'd like to thank the public who helped share the information that we put out last night regarding the suspect. Thanks to hundreds of posts on social media and coverage from our media partners late last night, we were able to share the information about the suspect across the metro and beyond. The situation began last night at about 8:15 when troopers were following up on a previous investigation at a residence in the 6200 block of 30th Street South in Omaha. Troopers believe that a wanted subject identified as Jason Davenport was inside the residence. A female occupant of the residence, Dana Michelle Banks, confirmed that Davenport was inside. Davenport had an active arrest warrant from Pottawatomie County, Iowa, and was being sought for questioning regarding fleeing a traffic stop last week. For some time, Davenport refused to exit the home. Additional troopers and Omaha PD officers arrived at the scene to assist. At about 8:56 p.m., Davenport exited the rear of the residence and fired at least 2 shots from a handgun toward troopers. He then jumped a fence and ran toward an unoccupied NSP cruiser. Several troopers and an OPD officer fired their service weapons as Davenport attempted to take the cruiser. He was unable to steal the cruiser because of security measures within the vehicle. Troopers and officers then saw that Davenport was attempting to access the rifle that was locked inside the cruiser. Because of an anti-theft system in place for NSP rifles, he was unable to access this weapon. At about this time, a gray Ford Fusion drove up to the cruiser. Banks exited the vehicle and approached Davenport. Davenport then held Banks in front of him as he went to get into the Ford Fusion. Banks then walked around the vehicle and voluntarily entered the passenger side of the car, at which time Davenport fled, driving through Upland Park. As the vehicle drove through the park, troopers and officers attempted to pursue but lost visual. A large search was conducted with the assistance of OPD and NSP helicopters. After about 2 hours, it was determined that the suspect was no longer in the area, and an officer safety message was sent out to law enforcement in both Iowa and Nebraska. As the investigation continued overnight, law enforcement developed information that Davenport may be traveling in a different vehicle in Washington County. At about 3 a.m., the Washington County Sheriff's Office located a Kia Soul that was believed to be stolen. The deputy attempted a traffic stop, but the driver fled and a pursuit ensued. This vehicle was occupied by both Davenport and Banks, who were involved in the first incident. After a short pursuit, both subjects exited the vehicle and fled on foot, eventually hiding inside a semi-cab in a large shop building near Kennard in Washington.
Well, it does seem that some of that video isn't playing through, unfortunately, but that was NSP Colonel John Bolduc giving an update about the events that led up to this overnight manhunt. Just to kind of review what he was talking about, he did praise the public and the media for sharing the information about the suspect. Now, just in my 15 years in journalism, I mean, it's always important if you have any information to share it with law enforcement. They will guarantee your anonymity if you'd like and make sure that you're safe, but it's important we get these people off the streets and ensure the safety of those around us as well. Meantime, charges are pending in Washington and Douglas counties for the series of incidents that he was mentioning. OPD will investigate the officer-involved shooting in Omaha, and NSP will investigate the second shooting in Kennard. Now, no officer was struck, so that's the really great news here. Banks, the woman who we showed you on screen earlier in that video, is believed to be a willing participant and not a hostage as initially thought. She did suffer a gunshot wound, but is expected to be all right. So that is the latest there. Meanwhile, I will say this is a developing story, so we are following these updates as they become available to us. You can always head to our website for the latest information. Again, that's WOWT.com. And you can see we do have this live recap in its totality right here on our website, along with pictures, that video available as well. So I think the good news about this, no officer was shot. This just sounds like kind of a crazy story, right? Just following it from beginning to end. Something that we're keeping an eye on here for sure. If you are just following us here at the Alert Center, just a wild night for responders. I'll just do a quick recap for you. A lengthy standoff in Washington County, 42-year-old manhunt suspect now in custody. I'm gonna head back to our browser here so you can see, there he is right there on your screen. That's our top story today, clearly. This is Jason Davenport. He was captured just before 8:30 this morning in Kennard, but not before police pursuit and an intense standoff. This all began around 8:15 last night. Officers went to the area of 30th and Jefferson to find him. He was wanted after fleeing from officers last week. He reportedly then fired a gun at troopers. Officers returned fire. They say he took a woman hostage and took off in a gray Ford Fusion. We recently learned during the press conference that the woman, Banks is her last name, is believed to be a willing participant and not a hostage in this situation. She did suffer a gunshot wound, but is expected to be all right. The Nebraska State Patrol this morning held a new news conference in Lincoln to talk a little bit more about this. Thankfully, we did learn that no officer was shot, and charges meantime are pending for Davenport and Washington and Douglas counties for just a series of events. OPD is investigating the officer-involved shooting in Omaha, and NSP will investigate the second shooting in Kennard. So clearly a lot happening this morning for all of us following this story when it first broke late last night and into this morning and now into the afternoon hour. Before we go though, we're going to switch gears a little bit, kind of take a look outside, see what we have cut out for us weather-wise today. So here's a look at our Blackstone camera. You can see, wow, a lot of clouds in the sky. I was listening in on Senior Chief Meteorologist Rusty Lord chatting about scattered showers, just kind of randomly pickpocketed throughout the greater metro area. We take a look from our First National. For joining me at the Alert Center, I'm Jacqueline Fernandez. We'll have all the latest on this story and more local news as well on our website, WWT.com, and on our first broadcast, Live at 3 with Dave Zavolinsky. Until then, thanks for joining me.